draw that when you were a kid.
Okay, it really is noon now. I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Blake Cohn. I am the Executive Director of the National Network of Schools in Partnership. I'm thrilled that you all are here to hear a little bit about how Madeira has approached scheduling and their use of time to honor their mission and vision for their school. We know that this is a concern for everybody when we're looking at community engagement and partnership programs. But before we get started, and I turn it over to Kate, I am going to ask that a couple of things. One, I just mentioned before, but if you're just joining, that we are recording. And if everybody, while Kate goes through her initial presentation, could put themselves on mute, it would help our audio and any sort of distraction. No judgment if you're calling from home and your dogs are barking, just, you know, those kinds of things. The second is if at the end, when we have the ability for some question and answer, there are two ways to, if it's too crowded to sort of just speak freely, you can either on the bottom of your screen, if you move your cursor around, there's a chat function, and you can send a question to the whole group, and that way Kate can see the question and we can answer it. The other way is if you go up by your name and there's 3 dots, you should be able to, nope, that's not where it is, raise your hand. Where is the raise your hand function? There's definitely a raise your hand function. Does anybody know where it is? Okay, if we don't know where it is, we're going to use the chat function to, I know there's a way that it puts your name up and it puts a hand up, but anyway, just use the chat function if we have a difficulty. I prefer us to be able to have an open conversation, but that doesn't always work, especially because we have over 20 people RSVP to this. So we want to make sure we can get to everybody, and if we don't get to have time for all the questions, put them up in the chat anyway, and we will write them down and we'll have an opportunity to answer them later. Okay, anyway, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for taking time out of your day to talk about this. And Kate, I'm gonna turn it over to you and your presentation, and you look all set. You are up and ready. Everybody can see your screen. So thank you so much.
Okay. Well, my pleasure. Welcome. This is my first webinar, so hopefully it'll go well. One of the things that we started, about 2010, Pilar Cabeza de Vaca joined our community, and it gave us an opportunity to really think about how we use time at Madeira. And today, you'll hear from me. My role at Madeira is the Assistant Academic Dean, and I'm also the Director of Educational Innovation. And then in a little bit, Larry Pratt, who is a history teacher, and I call him a curriculum innovator, he will join us to speak specifically about U.S. history and our Capitol Hill internship placement and the work that he's done to connect those two, which is really exciting. So a little bit about Madeira. We were founded in 1906. We're an all-girls school, high school 9 through 12. We have about 324 girls, and about half of them are boarding and half of them are day students. We're pretty evenly split. And for over 50 years, our co-curriculum program has been our signature internship program. And it consists of 3 years of internship in grade 10, 11, and 12. Grade 10 focuses on service, grade 11 on Capitol Hill internships in government, and grade 12 is really open to any opportunities the girls wish to explore. And we also have 16% of our students are international students. We have a really diverse student body. And this is a great picture of them. Our 2 colors are red and white, and this is them on Red and White Spirit Day, going up to the auditorium, having a great time. So it's a little bit about Madeira. And as I mentioned, Pilar joined us in 2010. And with her joining our community, it was really an opportunity for us to look at our pedagogy. We were excellent school in the things that we did, but really realized that there was a need to shift to be more of a student-centered school And we also noticed an alarming increase in academic stress that was really impeding the girls from learning. And we were also noticing that our co-curriculum program was waning in our partnerships that we were being able to have. And so our prior program, our co-curriculum was on Wednesdays. And so we had school Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and our internship program was every Wednesday. And so the girls went once a week to their internships throughout the entire year. And it was a great program, but things were changing. The girls wanted, we saw an opportunity for the girls to be in a more intensive internship program, and we're thinking of ways that we could do that and ways that we could start thinking about interdisciplinary work. So that's 2010 for you. That started, it's kind of those thoughts started us, and we ended up, so kind of where we are today is in a place where we really talk about kind of transformation, about individualization, choice, and wellness. So over the past 9 years, implementing what we call the MOD schedule has really allowed for these things. It's really allowed for us to look at the ways that we teach, the ways our girls learn, how they acquire skills, how they acquire content, and how they really apply those to do complex problem solving. We've also been very intentional about giving the girls more choice in the types of classes they take, both in the kind of core curriculum and in the electives, and to create more flexibility. Excuse me. So currently, through the MOD schedule, we have 324 girls and we have 324 different academic schedules. No two students have the same schedule. And no two students really have the same co-curricular program either. And so this is all about kind of an individualized approach to teaching and learning. And we've also been able to focus on the wellness of girls in their, less on the academic and more on their social and emotional wellness and well-being, and being able to find a balance between activities and athletics and academics. So that's kind of where we are today, which is a great place to be, and has taken 9 years. So I'll take you back to 2010 now. And who are joining us, we were also going into our VIS accreditation at that time. And so we asked VIS if we could do a strategic plan as our accreditation process. So it's a bit of an unusual accreditation process. Now I think it's more of the norm, but at the time we were the first school to do that. And what started off our strategic planning was a look at revising our mission and vision. So we were a traditional independent school with a 3-paragraph mission and vision statement that we could all kind of talk about, but no one could recite. And we have gone drastically in the other direction to a 1-sentence mission and vision of launching women who change the world and leading innovation in girls' education. And though that mission and vision was to be our guide for our strategic plan work. Our community values, I posted there, came about after the strategic plan, have kind of come about in the past 4 or 5 years, and continue to guide our work inside and outside of the classroom. And I love comics, so I've added one there for you. So our strategic plan, we started as a whole community in 2011. Every member of the community was in one of 5 strategic plan teams. And these teams revolved around, the first goal group was around kind of academics. So how do we establish ourselves as 21st century leaders in girls' education? The second one was a global goal, kind of bringing Madeira to the world and the world to Madeira. The next was about diversity, creating an inclusive culture that really flourishes in diversity. We're on over 300 acres. So the 4th goal was about environmental stewardship. And the final goal, you can't have a strategic plan without some financial sustainability, despite what I wish. And so we had to have some financial sustainability so that we could keep doing this work. And every member of the community was in one of these 5 groups from our buildings and grounds, all faculty, advancement, everybody joined a group. And we spent that full year talking about what needed to be included in those strategic plan goals. And we used 5 questions to test any kind of idea we had that we thought should be included. And these 5 questions that guided our work were about being budget neutral. There was not going to be an increase in funds. Was it going to be innovative? And innovative in the sense that it didn't have to be that no one had ever tried it, but it was something new for Madeira to try. And so I think that's a great way that we've looked at innovation, in something new for us to try and to get us thinking in new ways, and to really embrace a growth mindset. And so when I talk about the word innovation, that's how I'm referring to it, as really about the growth mindset. Any initiative had to be research and data driven. It had to be mission appropriate, and had to be interconnected. And interconnected used a little bit different than interdisciplinary. Interconnected really did it connect us to Washington, D.C., our location, or to our campus? So interconnected in different ways. And so we went through this and wrote our strategic plan. Great document that is really guided, and it was a 10-year strategic plan, so it's really actually 8 years. So it's really guided the past 8 years of our work as a community and been a solid grounding for us. So we're poised right now as we go into, our head is actually retiring, Pilar's retiring, and so we have a new head coming at the beginning of next year, and so we're kind of ready to launch ourselves into our next strategic plan. But at that time, this guided us. And from there, we looked at, okay, we're doing the strategic plan work. At the same time, once we finished it, the academic goal really challenged us to think about our curriculum and how we were teaching. And so we did kind of 2 things simultaneously. Pilar created the curriculum leadership team, which was a group of about 6 of us that she invited to really tackle what was the first strategic goal about academic excellence. How was that going to play out for Madeira? What were we going to need to put in place to move that goal forward over the next 5 years? And so that curriculum leadership team started to meet in the spring of 2013, and we were coached by a consultant as to kind of how to talk about innovation, how to look at academic innovation, both from the sense of being student-centered. What did that mean? What could that mean for us? What did our internship program, how might things play out? We quickly realized as a team that it wasn't kind of about new programming, but it was really going to be a conversation about how we use time. And that how we use time was going to be at the heart of our ability to move ourselves forward as a community and really kind of achieve this strategic goal. And so we tested our initiatives against those same 5 questions that we had used as goal groups. And we simultaneously, as we were talking about, okay, we're going to have to look at time. When we look at time, you've got to look at schedules. At the same time, we did a full year professional development with Jennifer Klein from the World Leadership School on project-based learning. And so since we had these Wednesdays where we didn't have class, it was a wonderful opportunity for us to do a full year-long PD. And kind of every 2 or 3 Wednesdays, we would talk about kind of student-centered learning through the lens of project-based learning. One of the things that I would change kind of in hindsight is that when we chose to look at student-centered learning through the lens of project-based learning, kind of quickly became, well, are we going to be a PBL school? Which we didn't have the intention. It wasn't that we wanted to bring in one new way of teaching. It was that PBL was the way through which we were going to look at what could student-centered learning look like for Madeira. So in hindsight, I think we would have brought in some experts on inquiry-based learning, on different types of student-centered learning, and had a more diverse PD over the course of that year. but hindsight is 2020. But that's, so we used Jennifer to kind of talk to our faculty throughout the year, because at this point, we didn't really know what we were going to be implementing as far as a new schedule. 2 years prior, Pilar had brought in the Skillful Teacher led by Fran Perlman, which is a fantastic program that looks at, kind of really allows you to look at your curriculum and teaching through the lens of a growth mindset, to really think about our practice as teachers. So these two things are kind of going on simultaneously. And as part of the curriculum leadership team, we started by surveying our community of students and faculty and asking them kind of, what are their highlights? What are their challenges in their days? We have an opportunity to really look at ourselves and our academics, and we asked for lots of feedback. And I don't have it, I'm sorry, but we made sticky notes of all the feedback we received, and my entire office, which has a lot of stuff in it anyways, but had even more stuff in it because I had sticky notes everywhere. And then we grouped those sticky notes into big categories. And that, along with the strategic plan categories, kind of guided our conversations as to how we would use time. And we ended up coming up with, I guess, how many? 1, 2, 7 categories. So you can see that we kind of divided everything into 7 categories. Brain-based learning, experiential learning, interdisciplinary teaching, disciplinary excellence, pacing, being student-centered, and student life encompassing. And so these ended up being our 7 big categories that we were going to judge any schedule against. And the student life encompassing, I'll explain that one a little bit. It's probably the least kind of, I think the rest of them are pretty self-explanatory. But student life, we had a lot of programs because we're boarding and day that we offered in the evenings, that we offered in the morning as a breakfast, on the weekends, that we wanted to encompass into a course or into some sort of programming that was accessible to all students. And so we looked at kind of what would that be so that our day students had access to the same type of programming as our boarding students. And so that's the student life encompassing kind of involves that piece of one of our goals that we were trying to achieve. So in October, so we started in the spring, now we're kind of October, November. We know that if we're going to launch anything, it has to be in time for the new admissions cycle, because any new student would need to know kind of what kind of program they would be coming into. So our time frame is pretty tight. And so we the CLT team came up with 3 schedules that we thought would achieve each of these in ways that our current schedule was not going to achieve. We'll say originally, the current schedule was going to be one of the options. And as we did more and more research, it came off the table. 45-minute classes, Wednesday only co-curriculum was not a way to move ourselves forward. So we looked at the rotating schedule, a 4x4 schedule, and the modular schedule. And we presented them to the faculty. We did the comparison of what areas do each of these schedules have strength, where were their weaknesses, what was going to be a challenge in each one of these schedules, what was going to be an opportunity in each of the schedules. And because no schedule was perfect, there wasn't going to be a magic bullet that was going to solve all of our problems. And but they allowed us opportunities, and they each allowed us to grow as a school towards the goals set out by our strategic plan. And so we had lots of choice ahead of us. And we specifically did a matrix in the evaluation to say, do they meet the goals of each of these categories? And rather than saying, which is your preferred schedule? Because what we were shifting away from was a schedule being more faculty-based and faculty-built to being a schedule that was student-centered and based on students. So I actually craft the schedule now solely based on students' choice for what courses they wish to take. And then we look at the staffing piece of it. So it's a completely flipped model of building a schedule as well. And so this matrix worked very well. It allowed everybody to kind of think about the opportunities and the challenges of each of the schedules, and then give feedback to the CLT team. Well, and I'll show you, so we have pages and pages of research that we summarized for the faculty. And this is a bit of the research. I thought I would share the bit on the experiential learning, so a lot about our co-curriculum program. And so this research, you can see at the bottom here, we shared what the link was to the strategic plan. So experiential learning, the phrases from our strategic plan were about the values and teaches an experiential curriculum, about the global piece, and about uniting our academic and co-curricular programs. And then the second piece underneath that is the feedback themes. And those were the themes gathered from our community. And our community was really looking for integrated programs to be able to have time in class and out of class, and a structure that really allowed our experiential learning to flourish. So those are the connections. And then at the top, you can see I've taken kind of summarized 4 key pieces of research, and then showed them what that research, the implication it has on a schedule. And because what we find, there isn't necessarily a lot of research on schedules, but there's a lot of research on the importance of experiential learning. And so we made the connections for faculty as to what that looks like in a schedule. So each one of the 7 categories has a page or 2 of a summary of research. And it was important that we share this research with faculty, because we wanted everybody to understand the reasons behind why we were moving forward with a change in schedule and what it would allow us to do. So this is what we came up with. So we set it to a vote. Well, we set to a vote. We did the matrix. It came back. We as a CLT team really had hoped that the modular schedule would rise to the top. We really thought it gave us the most potential for growth. And it did. It rose to the top. We were ready. We knew that we would move forward with whatever schedule kind of rose to the top after our presentation to faculty in October. And the modular schedule did. And so that's what we went forward with. So from kind of April to October, this all happened. And this is a kind of a summary of what the modular schedule looks like. Larry just stepped in. The modular schedule looks like we divide our time into, so everybody, this is Larry Pratt, history teacher extraordinaire. So our modular schedule divides time into 7 5-week mods, and our days are 3 academic blocks of 80 minutes, and they end the day with a activity, either sport, newspaper, writing, things like that. And the girls take 18 of 21 blocks is a full year. Academic courses are a full year academic course are 3 blocks over the course of the year. And the internship program now becomes 1 full mod. So the girls now go every day for 5 weeks to the internship. And it has been transformational in both our teaching and learning practices and in the internship. Allowing the girls to go every day for 5 weeks has really allowed them to dive into kind of their interaction with the internship and made them much more meaningful experiences for the girls. Trying to think, kind of that summarizes us in a year. So this is what a 9th grade schedule might look like. So the 9th grade, you can see you kind of have English there. 3 times a year, there can be breaks in class times. It really allows for a lot of flexibility. As I said, we have 324 different schedules. And it allowed us as educators to think about the type of skills that we wanted girls to be focusing on in each of our content areas, and then to think about, okay, what is the content that allows those skills to be delivered? Because we're really going to take a focus on depth over breadth. If we taught the girls how to dive deep into a topic, then they could dive deep into any physics topic, into any math topic, if they had the skills to really be a student and to master any topic within that discipline. We saw a remarkable decrease in academic stress. It did not mean that our health center was all of a sudden empty. It meant that we now had really their social and emotional well-being kind of rose to the top as to the things that we were able to talk about, that academic stress wasn't masking those other issues and concerns. No new faculty was added. That was one of our no new budgeting. And you can see for the ninth grade students, they have a new class called Student Life, which is in Mod 6 and Mod 3. So they have 2 blocks of Student Life, which allows all ninth graders to talk about everything from study skills to sleep management to mindfulness, environmental stewardship, media literacy, diversity and equity and social justice topics. So it's really quite an in-depth course, and it is taught by a variety of faculty and staff members from across the school. So it allows a greater range of people to get into the classroom, which is really exciting. And then you'll also notice that they have a STEAM fundamentals class in Mod 3. It's the black one. And that allows the girls to work in our makerspace and to really kind of tackle PBL style teaching and learning. And so they're designing and using the different makerspace and Fab Lab tools. And so every ninth grader is introduced to that. And that, the student life pieces of our prior co-curriculum program that were on ninth grade, on Wednesdays for ninth graders, are now incorporated into the student life course that we offer for the girls. And then this is a senior schedule. Yes, so here you can see the senior internship. And this is a full, so the juniors look very similar to this. And when they're at their internship, they go for the full day. So for the juniors are bused into the city to go to the Hill, and they return 4:30, 5 o'clock. So they don't participate in the activity when they're on their internship, which makes for a very interesting schedule. But helps them do a full day at their internship. So they're not leaving at 2 o'clock and missing half a day of their internship. One of kind of the unexpected outcomes is that you can see we have a 30-minute break in the day, and then we have a full hour for lunch and advisory, and then a 30-minute break in the afternoon. We really wanted to preserve the ability for our girls to conference with their teachers. It's an important aspect of what we do. We have lots of time for one-on-one meetings with teachers, and so that was very important for us. The other thing that was unexpected outcome is that now classes meet once a week for a class meeting, and that has really offered opportunities for classes to grow and bond as a group in ways that when we only had, once every month meetings as a class, we hadn't been able to achieve that as quickly. And so that's really been an excellent outcome for the girls. One of the kind of unexpected things that we've noticed, that I'll show you a way that we've kind of tackled that in a little bit, is ongoing faculty support in how we both talk about our curriculum and also as we introduce new faculty to the modular schedule and what that looks like. And so this is what it looks like from the faculty standpoint. So this looks like a faculty member will teach typically 14 of the 21 academic blocks. They have 7 planning blocks, and we really wanted to safeguard our time for collaboration and for professional development that we had on our Wednesdays. And so there are 4 blocks dedicated to professional development opportunities that can be guided by work the department's doing or individual growth that a teacher wants to do, and then collaboration opportunities where, like Larry's been collaborating with the co-curriculum office, and a lot of that work has happened during the collaboration time and professional development time in his schedule. The other thing that faculty members do is they participate in an activity. So this basketball is the activity that this teacher participates in. It could be newspaper, it could be yearbook, it could be coaching, really anything. They give 1 season time back to the school as well. one of the things that's exciting is that you can kind of restart a course at different times in the year. So in September, we have September at multiple times in the year. The start of each mod, you start a course fresh. And so you may be teaching the first block, Larry teaches the first block of US history in mods 1, 2, and 3. So you're, that restart of a class, you can reiterate more quickly because you have an opportunity to start again 5 weeks later. And so it allows for more iterations of a class to happen more quickly and more authentically than in a year's time when we, September is the first time we start everything. One of the things we've had to pay attention to is the pacing. Girls will switch. They're not in the same cohort of English classes or US history classes throughout the year. And so when you finish a block of a class, everybody kind of needs to end at the same place so that when they start the next block, they start at the same place. And so this has allowed, like in US history, to be thematic in nature. Our math classes have shifted to being more thematic in nature, so that you're not going chapter by chapter, but you're doing bits of chapter 1, chapter 6, chapter 5 within a mod because thematically they fit together. And then that rounds out, the mod has a nice beginning and an end when you're doing it thematically, rather than just dividing a textbook into 3, which doesn't work, because that keeps all the content and doesn't prioritize the skills. It has also continued to allow a lot of conversation with faculty members, because we're always talking about, okay, where does this work for the kids this year? Is the pacing on point this year? What does it look like? What might we need to tweak for this year's group of students? And I'm going to skip this one because we've spoken about most of these. And then I'm going to pass it over to Larry, because really one of the things that we have really kind of capitalized on is the Capitol Hill internship and our US history course integration. So much so that this year we no longer offer AP US history and offer solely US history, because the experience and the skills the girls were building in our US history design course were far superior than the content they were learning through AP US history. So I will let Larry talk a little bit about his course.
Okay.
As he talks.
Yeah, so U.S. history, I've been here since 1998, and one of the main things that I taught when I first started here was the intro to co-curriculum, which when we were meeting on a Wednesday and we were taking the entire day for the co-curriculum, we would provide like an hour before they went down on the Hill all the orientation they needed to be able to do a good job on Capitol Hill. We called it public affairs, and we did current events and what's happening in the world, what was going to be being discussed on the Hill. We talked about what the House and the Senate are and what they would be doing down there. We'd really prepare them for that activity. But that was an hour long on a Wednesday. And ultimately, we phased that out because we were finding it was too much work in addition to all the extra coursework that they were doing. And going back to what Kate was talking about with the stress levels of the students, we wanted to sort of take away some of that stress. So we went away from that. And when we entered into the new mod schedule, I started to think about, well, how can we get that public affairs experience back into the curriculum in some other way, now that they were going down for a 15-week period. And I started to think about how really, because all our juniors are on Capitol Hill and in US history, that US history would be an opportunity to do that. And so we changed our US history curriculum around pretty significantly to be able to return all of those elements of public affairs back into the co-curriculum program and still cover the content of US history. And so US history is a 4-mod class. We get an extra mod because we do a lot of research in that course as well. So that traditional sort of junior research paper that you would have in a more traditional US history curriculum, we've inserted that into this new co-curriculum U.S. history class. And so they do a research project. So we get 4 mods as opposed to sort of the 3 for other classes. The first mod is the American Revolution and the Constitution. And we spend the first couple of weeks talking about the American Revolution and the designing of the Constitution. And then in the second half of the class, we actually look at how the Constitution is applied today. And that's really a government class, the second half, to get them prepared to go down. So we emphasize the legislative branch so they understand what Congress does. If they're serving in the House of Representatives, what does that mean? If they're serving in the Senate, what does that mean? What are the differences between the 2 branches? What are they trying to accomplish? So we spend a lot of time preparing them to understand exactly what they're going to be doing down there, what the role of Congress is in the government process. And so that's the first mod. And then each other mod is arranged thematically, and we go from when the Constitution was ratified all the way to present, but we do it on particular issues. One of those issues right now, I'm teaching civil rights for all. And so we look at the race and gender issues throughout U.S. history, from the ratification of the Constitution all the way up to present. And so the last day, we are talking about current issues, issues that are going to come up on Capitol Hill while they're on the Hill. So they are coming down, and they're going down to the Hill with some idea about what's going on in that particular area. Another one of the mods is international relations. We look at how the United States emerges as a world power, how it's become internationally entangled with all other countries. And then, of course, the last day would be talking about current U.S. foreign policy and what issues might come up in Congress. The third mod, thematic mod, is economic history. And so we talk about how the United States emerges as a capitalist power, as the largest economy in the world, or at least per capita, and how it's been successful. And then in the last couple days of that mod, we would be talking about economic issues and taxes and the budget and things like that. So that's the content part of the class in terms of history. And then the research component, one of their mods is a prep mod. We call it a preparation for Capitol Hill. They meet with the co-curriculum office to talk about how you answer phones, how you do your job. So chunks of time are taken out of the U.S. history class to give the co-curriculum office a chance to prepare their students. And then we also have them practice research skills. We have them research their representative and district that they're going to be working in, so they have an understanding of who they're actually working for while they're on the Hill, who their constituents are, who their representative is. So they do that research, they practice the research skills. And then once they've gone down on Capitol Hill, when they come back, we have their capstone research, which is they select an issue that's of interest to them. They research it while they're on the Hill, and they have to come up with a legislative proposal to deal with some problem that's associated with that issue that they're interested in. And so we encourage them to talk with their legislative aides that work on that particular issue as a source. So they're bringing back some rich source material from the Hill. And then they have to make this proposal, this legislative proposal. And one of the caveats is it has to be something that their representative could actually support. That they can, if, for instance, if they're interested in gun control and their representative is very much supported by the NRA, they have to sort of figure out, well, how am I going to couch this proposal in a way that will be accepted to them? And that adds an additional challenge to their research. And so by the time that they've finished U.S. history, they've done 2 research projects, one that requires a great deal more synthesis and analysis than the first one. And they leave the U.S. history class with those research skills that we think are really important as part of our curriculum. So there it is. That's a quick rundown of what we do in U.S. history. And as Kate pointed out, the feedback we were getting from students who took this as opposed to AP US History was that their co-curriculum experience was much richer, much less stressful. They felt really good about going down and really being prepared for that we decided there's no reason to be offering AP when the feedback that we're getting is that it's worked really well in terms of their experience.
Any lessons learned that you want to share?
Well, it's a lot of coordination. It depends. A lot of the scheduling is very challenging, and it's a lot of balancing because part of the scheduling is we could have students who are in their prep module at the same time that other students are just taking a regular module of US history. We've got 4 modules. Only one is their prep. Only one is their capstone research. So there are 2 other modules that are just standard. But we can't schedule just standard kids in one class and just prep kids in another. So it requires us to sort of coordinate. While standard students are doing one activity or assessment, the prep kids are doing a different activity or assessment. And so we have to kind of work that into, we have assessment days where half the class might be working or might be writing an in-class essay. The other half would be working on their prep research project. So it requires a lot of sort of logistics and working with other people. We've got the co-curriculum office we have to work very closely with and coordinate everything we do, because we're sending half our students down to the co-curriculum office to learn how to do their internship about once a week. So the nice thing about having 80 minutes is you can do these things. You can take half of your class to have them go down and do prep, because you've got another 40 minutes to actually cover material. And so that block schedule really works well with this type of model.
Thank you.
Okay,
excellent.
My pleasure.
Larry has to go back and teach, so I stole him out of the classroom for 15 minutes. Thanks, Larry.
Yep.
One of the things that we gave to teachers, and I think I actually have one up here, I'll grab it. When we started with 80 minutes, were these little stack of cards, and I've given 2 on the screen, and it was a tool to say, if you, switching from 45 to 80 minutes, if you get done your lesson and you still have 10, 15 minutes left, grab these cards and pick an activity to do. And so they're all about there's all different categories, from energizing and inquiring. There's ones on how to close a class, how to do a quick assessment, all sorts of different things. And so I just wanted to share that. It was something that we wanted teachers to have as they made the transition, that was easily at their fingertips when they found themselves with time to spare as they switched from 45 to 80 minutes. The other thing that I alluded to earlier, because I want to save time for questions, was one of the things that we have been conscientious about. That's not true. One of the things we receive feedback about, and now are conscientious about, is how new faculty joining our community are introduced to the mod schedule. I mean, they have chosen, as they are interviewing at Madeira and preparing their lessons to sample teach, they've chosen Madeira and they've chosen to work in a mod schedule. And they understand the theory of it, but they're often very curious about the research behind it. And so one of the things created 2 summers ago was an online summer orientation program for new faculty. And it divides into 4 topics and is a quick, here's some information, PDFs on research, and here are 1 or 2 activities for you to do, really discussion boards to talk about these topics. Because we were finding that as people came to our community, they were eager to come with more knowledge. And so the topics kind of start out with like who we are, creating community. These are the cohort and new faculty. And then it goes into 3 meatier topics, really on our mission and vision. What does it mean to be teaching at Madeira? Why does our mission and vision make Madeira and teaching in a Madeira classroom different than teaching at another independent school classroom? And that's I think, a key distinction and something we talk about a lot. How do our community values impact what we choose to teach? And what do we know about a growth mindset, and how does that impact students and faculty? Then a whole section, all of the research that we shared with faculty in October of 2013, we've put up so that new faculty can also read through it and be familiar with the same research. And then we talk a lot about being an all-girls school, which is really important to us. What does that mean? Why is that different for us? And so that's something that we've added in the past 2 years to kind of bring people into the loop, those who didn't go through the strategic plan process. It was 8 years ago. And so that's been really helpful. And we're looking at ways to expand those conversations as well. And these are just a few quotes to kind of close. This is from our academic dean, M.A. Mahoney. And, when you change every 5 weeks, teenagers like change. It's always a fresh start. You always have new faces and new topics. This is from our chair of our art department, Sasha Newman. She really has appreciated the ways that the schedule has allowed for time for the arts to be integrated into the classroom in different ways, and for that intentional collaboration blocks that faculty have, how they have chosen to work with art teachers, with different STEAM teachers, and things like that. And this is from Shield Sundberg, who has taught here for a long time. And, we kind of combine the two, innovation and traditions. And so thank you. I hope this has been insightful. And I know it's been a quick and a lot of information, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. And I think I may exit out of the slideshow so that I can see everybody.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Kate, I have a question. Would you be willing to share your slides with everybody?
Yes, absolutely. My
Okay,
pleasure.
so if you send them to me, I will forward them. I saw plenty of people taking pictures of their...
Oh, please. Yes. My pleasure. Absolutely. Yes. I'm happy to share anything. If you wish the document on the research, I'm happy to share it. One should not reinvent the wheel, and yes.
All right, do you want me to stop the screen sharing? Because I don't think you have
Sure.
entirely. Yes. Do that. No, I don't want to share my screen.
There you go. Be better?
Yeah. Yes.
Excellent.
Much better.
Okay.
Open up questions. I'm sure there's lots of questions. So remember, you're on mute. So take yourself off mute if you have a question. Ooh, I think you're on mute.
Yeah.
Here, I got you.
All right, we're good?
Yeah.
Hi there. Thank you for the presentation. Hi, Blake. How are you?
Good to see you.
So one question I have, this is amazing work that you all have done. I am not understanding how this is cost neutral, which is an important piece of our puzzle as we present to faculty and administrators on the big changes and the necessary training that's going to happen. So how is it that this is cost neutral?
So the PD, we have a PD fund. And so the money for the Wednesday PD that kind of on the PBL and on the, from Fran Perlman came out of our general PD fund. And we did not add any new faculty. So no new faculty positions were created. We just reallocated how we use time.
What about the summer orientation piece for new faculty? And was that a new initiative, or did you always have that sort of robust orientation?
No, that's something that I created to support new faculty. I do a lot of the new faculty onboarding and mentoring throughout the year. It is optional. So faculty aren't under contract until later in August. So it's something that we share with them as an option and a resource for them to use.
Okay, so they're not like getting paid for that extra time or anything. Okay.
It is something that we are talking about now as like, should there be compensation? Should it be required? Kind of what is it? But we wanted to make sure that we shared the resources with them for those who wish to engage with them.
I have one other question about the timing of the senior internship. Does that happen at the end of the year?
So our sophomores and our sophomores can go either in mod 2 or mod 6. So half the class goes off on their internship in Mod 2, half in Mod 6. They have 6 placements, about 6 that they choose from, service placements, and they go in small groups of about 6 to 8 girls. And then the juniors, they go off in Mods 2, 4, 6, or 7, depending on what their activity is and what their courses are, depends on which mod they go in to their internship. And the same for the seniors. The seniors are 2, 4, 6, and 7. There isn't necessarily a magic to those, the timing. Mod 2 allows us to kind of get going in Mod 1 to secure the placements, then some time to get going before we do Mod 4. And then Mod 7 at the end of the year isn't necessarily ideal, but it does allow for our athletes, our 3-season athletes, to be able to go for a full day internship in Mod 7 because our spring sports have essentially ended after the first week or so of the mod.
Okay.
So it allows less of a conflict. When we first started, we only had 2, 4, and 6, and we had conflicts with our 3-season athletes. So we've added in 7.
So last question, sorry to take up so much airtime. So how is the student engagement then in that last, a lot of the models of senior capstones are the students kind of finish in May and we want them safe, but we want them engaged someplace else because often at school, we all know what happens. So has this new schedule engaged students on a level, including seniors, that's so deep that it really doesn't matter when that capstone happens?
Oh, yeah, no, they're fully engaged in their Mod 7
Okay.
co-curriculum. Absolutely.
Okay.
It's also interesting because each mod is, essentially think of your courses as trimesters, right? You take the final grades from your Mod 1, your Mod 3, and your Mod 7 English class, and you average them together. So it's essentially, it's a simple trimester kind of class structure. But your Mod 7 grade is equally as important as your Mod 3 or your Mod 1 grade. So the work you're doing in that last week of school up to graduation counts just as much as your work that you're doing in Mod 1. So that's been interesting. We've seen a decrease in absences.
Okay.
And now there's still the rhythm and roles of school. The girls are all excited for winter break, but they have to work up until the last day of school. We end classes the day before graduation.
Yeah.
You're taking a test.
Okay.
We got rid of the exams. We have no exams. They were a waste of time.
Same here. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
In my humble opinion.
Kate, can you see the chat? Can you see the chat on your screen? You have 2 questions there.
I guess language teachers, I was wondering who was going to ask me that.
Thank you very much.
So I am a world language teacher. I taught French for 15 years before transitioning into this role. And it does work. It works beautifully in our language classrooms. And in our math classrooms, that's the other question we always get. Math is, as I said, kind of done it thematically. And languages continues to think about how they divide their curriculum into 3 different kind of segments. And they do have a more linear progression. The girls typically say, and the teachers, the first day of the mod is review of the previous mods, and then they continue with new work. It's a very short review time. And depending on what a student needs, we have the conference times. So a girl who is struggling to write thesis statements, or a girl who's struggling to conjugate verbs, can meet with her teacher in the mods where she's not in that class to continue to build those skills. And so sometimes having a break is actually really helpful. It gives the girls some downtime as well. And one of the things that all of the teachers in any discipline, we are more intentional about linking to previous mods. So linking the work back. This is something that we discussed in the first block of French 1. Now you need to pull that forward. I think sometimes when we do kind of 12, the September through June, we just keep going. Now we really have to be intentional about what we're asking the girls to pull forward and guiding them through that. And so making their learning visible for them and having them also be part and ownership of their learning. So they are active participants. It is something that I will say that to go back and do it again, to help the students through the change process and kind of how they were going to be shifting to being more actively engaged in their learning is something that we could have done a better job with. We kind of thought girls were kind of resilient and would bounce along, and we are now more intentional about talking about their role in their learning. And then the other one, communicating changes. So we held several with parents. We held and with alumni. We open forums, and we did kind of releases in our standard ways. They didn't. We had a few people come to the open forums, but not as many as you would have thought. And some of them were about, my daughter being the guinea pig. The research was really important. We shared a lot of the research with the families so they could see what the research was grounded in. And what we talk about now is always that you want your daughter to be in a community that talks about teaching and learning. And we are actively engaged. So we're not committed to teaching X, Y, and Z every year. We are committed to always talking about it. And so that's kind of one of the ways that we speak about it. And our co-curriculum program, the depth of their experiences at their internship is so drastically different than when they were going once a day on Wednesdays. It's amazing. It really, and the co-curriculum program has historically been really one of the transformational pieces of our curriculum. And so to have that enhanced as well has really been fantastic.
And I'm going to ask the question that no one wants to ask is, how does this help with kids in their college selection, essays, college counselors talking about your curriculum and your pedagogy, et cetera?
Yeah. So our transcript looks exactly the same as it did before. English 1 lumps into a final English grade. So from the university's perspective, our transcript really looks very much the same. They have a greater range of electives and things like that on their transcript. Now, we spoke to the universities kind of as they came out to visit us, and our plan, like our one-page cheat sheet of who we are at Madeira for universities, has a description of the mod schedule so they can see how we use time. We're conscientious about the types of grades we send, so that we end mod 2 in time to send mod 1 and mod 2 grades to universities. That's what I mean by conscientious about what types of grades. They get a D, they get a D. So we're conscientious in the timing of those things so that girls have a full 2 mods of grades to share universities are doing the same thing. They're changing. They just want to know your girl's still prepared. So I joined late. Full-time employment. Yes, it is. So a full-time employee is linked to both the number of courses and the number of students that you teach. Because it could be that if you teach a fewer number of students that you may have 15 courses, 15 blocks on your teaching schedule. It also can depend on what your department. So our math department, as they were kind of figuring out their curriculum design and the flow of things, we're offering quite a few. We're asking the girls to take quite a few things. And so they were actually all teaching 15 blocks. And so they've realigned things so that their teachers can teach more at 14. So sometimes it can be based on student load. It can also be based on kind of department requirements.
Is there any faculty supervision when they go on their internships? Is that someone's role?
The co-curriculum office is 3 people, and one kind of runs the 10th grade and is a part-time history teacher. One works with the juniors and one works with the seniors. And so with that, and through this process, the co-curriculum office has actually designed a more robust curriculum and has used our curriculum mapping through Atlas to really actually design what are the essential questions, what are the assessments, how do we guide the girls, so that the assessment and the work piece for our co-curriculum program has also increased dramatically.
I'm conscious that it's already 1 o'clock, which.
Oh, I apologize. Yeah.
Oh, Susan, were you trying to talk?
It's okay. Well, I was. It's all right.
Go. We're fine.
It was just that, Kate, you had mentioned that you have 324 separate schedules. Can you talk briefly about, I guess, the schedule choice, like how the girls go about choosing course selection and then how you design the schedules?
Absolutely. I'll give you the very short version. It's like a whole nother webinar. The departments recommend girls for their next logical course in the series of their courses. So now with the removal of like AP World and US, 9 through 10 is pretty set, The girls take a placement test for math and languages. And so that's where a lot of differentiation happens. And your math course, as you're once you're a sophomore, your math course will determine your science course. So then that gets a greater variety of options out there as well. And then the girls have choice within that. You know, if you're recommended for 2 courses, you can pick your top one in the department. Seniors, there's a ton of flexibility within the senior schedule. And then the other place is when they're electives. So if I really want to take, you know, play building or ceramics, then I will look at a girl's schedule if it doesn't naturally fit to see where I could move her course combinations to see if I could add in that specific elective for a girl. They also have open blocks, or they also have, they can have to take 18 of 21. So they have 3 free blocks they could have throughout the year. And so girls, depending on their schedule, can move those free blocks about to help, you know, if they're in a musical and they know the musical is a really busy time, they may put a free block in Mod 4 so they can balance the work of the musical and tech week with their academics. Or if they struggle with writing and their reading speed is lower, they may take a free block if they have history and math, or history and English together. So that kind of individualization then creates different schedules. Yeah, absolutely. Now my timer's going. I wonder what that was, but it's me.
Does anybody have any last questions? I really appreciate that. We could talk about this for another whole hour and ask a million more questions. Everybody on the invitation that was the calendar invite is everybody's email, and I will send out, if you share with me your PowerPoint, I will send it out. But at NNSP, my favorite part is the networking component of it. So I encourage you all to reach out and to connect with one another and to follow up with Kate with more questions.
Absolutely.
The more that we can share this and help create the best schedule for each individual school, the better. But I love this program. I think it's super innovative. And I think it's amazing to see how far it's come. But just remember, everyone who wants to do this was 8 years ago that they started doing this, right? So it doesn't happen overnight.
Well, it did happen pretty quickly, but yes, we've been doing it for a while now. The other thing I will say is that one of the reasons we still love it is because we can still see where it can allow us to grow. And I think that for us has been key. We're not ready to change schedules. We might be ready to tweak something, but we have so much more room to grow with interdisciplinary, with how we do teaching and learning, which is really, that's our true benefit.
What's the one thing you wish your schedule included but doesn't?
More time for me to build it.
More time to schedule kids. Goodness gracious, I'm tired just thinking about trying to schedule 330 kids individually.
I think we have added in over the past year kind of professional development days 3 times a year where the whole community's together and the grade levels do different things, which is something I didn't talk about, but I think that was a need for whole community group work. Right. And so we added in 3 days in the year for that work, which has been really beneficial. We did that 2 years ago as well.
Awesome.
Yeah. Excellent.
Well, thank you so much. Last chance. Everybody has Kate's
anytime.
Email if they need to reach out to her or reach out to me. But thank you so much for being here. And our next one isn't until January. So I don't know off the top of my head what it is, but I love these online webinars. This will be up on our website and on our YouTube channel by tomorrow. So if anybody you know missed it and wants to watch it, or if you want to go back and look at certain parts, it'll be available to everyone for free access. Okay, so thank you so much.
Bye, guys.
Have a great afternoon.